Welcome to Talmudic Treasures. Today we're learning Nazir, page 12, which discusses an interesting situation where you have a person who wants to get married, and he goes to a person and says, "Can you do me a favor? I would like to get married." And he says, "Okay, can we narrow it down? Which woman, which city should I go?" And he says, "Just marry me off. Doesn't make any difference." And this man perhaps be a little bit confused by this, but he does as he's told. And we assume that he did as he was asked to do. Unfortunately, that was the last thing that he did, because he subsequently died. And he did not inform this man who he married. And because of this, the Talmud tells us he is no longer allowed to get married to anyone else. There is the possibility, if he would get married, even though a man is allowed to marry more than one woman, but he's not allowed to marry, for example, two sisters, or a relative, a mother and her daughter. And since we have no idea who he actually got married to, so we have this concern that maybe he actually is going to be now marrying the relative of this woman that he was married to originally. Now, on this, the Talmud does say there are exceptions. If, let's say, for example, you find a woman who has no relatives, maybe she doesn't have any siblings, she doesn't have any children, and unfortunately her mother, grandmother, they have since passed. So since she is literally on her own, so if you marry her, there's nothing to be concerned about, because obviously, even though you were married to someone else, it couldn't possibly be her relative. She has none. Another option is if you have a woman that was married at the time. Let's say she did have a sister, but that sister was married. So obviously that sister could not have accepted Kiddushin, could not have been married to you, because she was already married at the time that this person went to look for someone for you. And therefore you would also be able to marry her. Now, her sister. Now, this again is a unbelievable situation, because otherwise he would not be allowed to get married to anyone. And on this, Tosfos asked the question. We generally hold that we go after the majority. Now, this is a 1 in a million chance that he's marrying the relative. But there's a much greater chance that he's just marrying some other woman who is not related to this first woman. So why then are we being so strict over here? And on this, Tosfos says you're right. According to the actual biblical law, we would actually create and put in this rule of going after the majority. And technically, he is allowed to get remarried. However, the rabbis say, we are going to make this man's life difficult. We are going to punish him. We're going to put a penalty on him and not allow him to get remarried. Why? What did he do wrong? What he did wrong was he took this notion of marrying someone very lightly. The fact that he said, "Yeah, I'll just marry me off to anyone," and he didn't specify, he put himself into this position. And since he put himself into this position, we say, okay, you know what? We're going to make it more difficult. You cannot get remarried. Which teaches us two things. Just in general, a person should not complain and start being critical and also feeling like a victim if you're the one that put yourself into the position in life that you're in right now. If you're in a situation that things are not going well for you, but it's because of a series of poor choices that you've made, there's one person to blame, and that's you. So just like this person, he put himself in that position, so too we cannot be critical of how everyone else treats us or how unfair the world is when we put ourselves into our position. But it also teaches us the notion in general about marriage. That when it comes to marriage, we want you to take marriage seriously. And for you to just say, "Oh, I'll marry anyone that is out there," that's not the direction that we want you to take.